content is king, and you're the only one that can provide the content. Like, what you have to offer, you yourself, the person that you are, is absolutely amazing, and no one else has it. No one sees through your eyes, hears through these ears, feels with your heart, understands things the way that you do. Even if people come from similar circumstances and have similar experiences, you're going to have completely different books because of how all of those life experiences have shaped you.
And a pleasant good afternoon to you, wherever you might be joining us. We just got some bad news. In the pre-show, I was just told that Eddie Van Halen just passed away. So for all of you that were crushing on Eddie in the 80s, we sadly talk about his passing today. So one more person from the 80s is gone. What is up with 2020? I mean, all that's going on, and then we lose the legend, Eddie Van Halen. I don't know. This is crazy stuff. Welcome to the program today. We are talking about storytelling. According to the research, up to 90% of Americans feel that they actually have a book in them. And did you know that only 2% of Americans actually get it out of their head and in their heart and onto paper? And each one of us has a story to tell. Would you like to write a book? But where do you start? And how do you overcome the obstacles that invariably and inevitably get in the way and hold you back from making it a reality? Today, I want to help you believe in the power of your story, because I believe that your story could change the world. Today's program is being brought to you by lifehistoryapp.com. Your life history matters to those that you leave behind. Go to lifehistoryapp.com. That's lifehistoryapp.com to sign up for your free account. And then you'll also get 500 megabytes of secure cloud storage, as well as a 30-minute consultation to help you put together your life history. So join now. Get that megabyte storage space absolutely free, as well as that consultation. Go to lifehistoryapp.com. That's lifehistoryapp.com. All right. I am so excited for our guest today. I was recently introduced to her. I'd seen her on Facebook for a number of years and thought, wow, she has just got an amazing story. What an absolutely wonderful person. And then I was just thumbing through Facebook one day, and I saw that she was holding a virtual writers retreat for the upcoming weekend. So I enrolled. And then after that wonderful 2-day experience, I actually went to her Inspired Writers Retreat recently at Bear Lake. And I thought, I've got to get her on the show. So my guest today is a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. She's an international speaker, writing coach, mentor, and leads the Inspired Writers Retreat. She's an advocate and human rights activist. She is a founding member and director of SHEROES United, a nonprofit organization directed by women who dare to change the world through love. And this is one person who exudes love in everything she does. SHEROES are committed to abolishing human trafficking, eradicating domestic violence, and supporting female veterans and first responders. She is the mother of 4 children and 2 grandchildren. She is happily married to Doug and lives in the mountains of Utah. Welcome to the program, Bridget Cook-Burch.
Well, hello, Cos, my friend. So delighted and honored to be here with you today.
It is so good. You know, I messed up on the intro. I got thinking about Eddie Van Halen, and
I know.
I got my mind off of lifehistoryapp.com. So you're the one that broke the news to me. Eddie Van Halen passed away.
I know, I was crushed. It was not COVID, it was cancer, but still, for us to lose such a legend is a rough thing. It really is. I was a big 80s hairband girl. Got to tell you, I saw Van Halen several times in concert.
And be honest with us, were you crushing on Eddie back in the 80s?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was one of my favorites. And the way he handled that guitar, we'll just keep it at that.
Yeah, he was awesome. What is up with 2020, though? This is just the year of years. So many things are going on.
It's so true, but it's also a great year for us to be really reflective. You know, we're spending some time a little bit isolated, but it gives us a chance to really take a look at our lives and to also renew and recreate ourselves. So I love that.
Well, and we've been so busy up to this point just living life that, to your point, this is a good year of reflection, and with that reflection can mean looking in our rear view mirror and thinking about our life histories and the stories that make us us. And I know that was kind of my experience this year, and so I was led to you, and you have been very instrumental in my journey the last couple of months, and I just wanted to share you with the rest of the world, so I didn't want to keep you all to myself.
Well, I appreciate that, but I got to tell you, cause you have such an extraordinary story. I am delighted that you have been trusting the deepening of it, because I can't wait for it to get into people's hands and hearts. It is one of those powerful stories that will change the world. And I believe change the way that people look at themselves.
I believe that. And if you go through that process, you just experience so much as you relive your own history and put those experiences down on paper, and then just realize what lessons you really learned from it when we look back in retrospect 20, 30, 40 years in that rearview mirror.
Yeah.
You recently became a grandmother again. You just got back from meeting your new grandbaby. Tell us about that experience. And we'll talk about writing, but this is what it's all about, is family. And like we talked about in the introduction, the power of love.
The power of love, I'm telling you. So I got to go to Phoenix, be with my daughter Mackenzie and nearly 4-year-old Xander, and then to hold baby William. It was absolutely stunning. And, you know, when she was my second, and to hold my second grandson was also just exquisite. It brought back a lot of memories, you know, as we're talking about reflecting and looking back on life.
So let's talk about the journey of being a writer. So tell us a little bit about the books that you've helped write, the books you've written yourself. I mean, you've been on Oprah. You've really accomplished some great things as an author. You have also helped a lot of people write their works into best-selling books as well. Tell us a little bit more of your journey and what brings you to this point in your life.
Well, thank you for asking. I really appreciate it. And just to be clear, I have not been on Oprah, but a subject of my book was on Oprah. Dr.
Okay, the subject of one of Bridget's books was on Oprah, and she was sitting in the green room excited.
Yes, I was. Especially when Oprah said, "Do you want to know which part is my favorite part of this book?" And I was like, yes. So
that's awesome. Not everybody can say that. And when one of your books is on Oprah, it's destined to be a bestseller that day, isn't it?
It certainly is. And she kept it up on her website for years and years. In fact, it's still the story of it. It was the first time that Dr. Phil and Oprah got back together for the first time in years and years. But it was Melissa's extraordinary story that really got that rolling. But I didn't find Melissa immediately. In fact, she found me. But I'll share with you how exactly it happened.
Yes, please.
When I was in college, I was working 3 jobs and going to school and just trying to prove that I was worthy of just even being alive. I always thought I had to prove something. So I just worked my guts out and literally worked myself nearly to death. I was in the hospital listening to nurses outside in the corridor, and they're saying that I wasn't going to make it until morning. And the one thing I can tell you is I knew that I had not fulfilled the measure of my creation. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I hadn't done it. And in that hospital room, I was given a second chance at life. And when I left, I was a different person, because the story that I told myself had shifted, had changed. And I saw firsthand the power of story, what it had done in my own life. And then I was given the gift to be able to just look anyone in the eye, love them for who they are, but also see the stories they were telling themselves. So I started working with gang kids and high-risk youth in Denver, and noticed the boxes they were living in because of the stories they'd been told about who they are and what they represent, what they're capable of, and all of their limitations. And it was fascinating to me when someone would break outside of that box. And those were the stories I began to write. So I fell in love with true stories, even though I started off as a fiction writer. And I will tell you that one of the first books that I ever wrote was called Skinhead Confessions: From Hate to Hope. And it was a true story of a gentleman that had joined a gang so that he could protect himself in his youth. And then he became one of the most powerful storytellers in the world, all for this effort of hate. But when he became a dad, all of a sudden he realized he did not want his sons growing up the way that he had through all this violence. So he turned his life around, became a contribution to society, and all the destruction that he had once created, he used for creation. And it was amazing to see. And then a woman had read his book and said, I think if someone could take a story of so much darkness and create something of hope and healing, it would be you. And then she said, would you write my story? I'm the daughter of the happy face serial killer. And I was literally beside myself. I did not know how to write that story, but inspiration did come. And we didn't have to have a true crime book. We had a powerful story of transformation, like TJ's, from destruction to something amazing and beautiful. And that's what got Oprah's attention and lots of media across the world. It was really beautiful and the start of a true career. And then my final book, that has been published, because I'm working on 3 right now, but my final book that was published, besides some really powerful anthologies I've done, is one called The Witness Wore Red. And it's about Rebecca Musser, who was the 19th wife of 65 women who escaped from Warren Jeffs and the FLDS and was able to rescue and help young girls as young as 12 from being child brides in that particular society. And so it was a very powerful and life-changing book for me to be able to write. And since that time, I've had the opportunity and really the honor and the privilege of helping many, many authors to be able to tell their best story. You know, because you were talking about that 90% of Americans have the desire to write a book and feel like they have one. And then there's such a small percentage that get it done. I like to cut the learning curve and help people really get their stories out. I help fiction authors, and my specialty is nonfiction, true stories, memoirs, self-helps, autobiographies. That's really my forte.
And I would agree. Everybody believes that they have a book in them, but what gets in the way? What gets in the way from that vision we see in our head and those feelings we have in our heart? What gets in the way of actually getting it on paper, or at least in the computer monitor?
In the computer, that's true. Well, I will tell you this. A lot of times it's our egos. So not the ego that, you know, says, oh, I'm all that and a bag of chips, right? It's the ego that's trying to protect us. And when we're telling a story, we often have other people that play a role, because stories really are all about relationships. And so all of a sudden we're like, well, I can't tell the truth about that, or I'll be throwing so-and-so under the bus, or I can't really tell what happened here. And our ego starts to try to protect us. And what's so important for people to know is that no one wants stories about gurus who don't make mistakes. We're all looking for people who are actually real and raw and vulnerable. And so I have found that the ego mind is actually connected to the left brain, and the juicy side of your writing is connected to your right brain. So if you can find a way to utilize your left brain to outline things, to put them in chronological order, to sequence things, make sure you understand time and space, then it makes for a really wonderful read for your reader, as long as you come in after and then you create the juicy side. You know, no one really wants to hear about a wedding day, but they love to hear the stories about, you know, when did you find that exceptional woman, and when did you get down on your knee and ask for her to marry you? You know, those juicy stories that create so much meaning in our own lives. That's what we pay attention to. That's what, when we chronicle, it makes a book that you just can't put down until it's all done, and then you shut the book and you're aware of, wow, that was a mighty message, that was something so important, and then you refer all your friends to it. So we like to create books that are about movements, that don't just create followers and readers, but people who want to take action in their own lives, become their own leaders, become their own contributions. And so that's really what is exceptional about this. Oh, we got Irene on too. How wonderful.
I don't want to throw you off by throwing comments up there, but there's just so many comments coming in. I've got to throw a few of them up there. That doesn't mean you have to read them in the moment. That's awesome. You've definitely got some fans watching today. Where do we start though? Because in our mind, we write these stories all the time and we say, gosh, when I write a book, I got to remember to do this and I got to remember to do that. We might even have a notebook where we start to chronicle some of these events. But what's a good place for our viewers and listeners to start so that they can at least start to develop some kind of, framework around where they're going to keep their stories and how they're going to keep track of them?
Well, it really depends on what kind of book that you're writing, but I'll give you an indication. If someone was going to write a life story, something that has intrinsic meaning, so whether that's a memoir or an autobiography, there will be important life events in there. And for really skilled and exceptional writers, it will be important to be chronological as you can. It's okay to do some flashbacks, but it's oftentimes where, especially beginning writers, will lose a reader. So be as chronological and powerful as you can. And when you remember the sequence of things, what's really beautiful are the miracles that will happen. Because oftentimes we just write down our memories. And Cause, you met a wonderful older woman by the name of Martina. And Martina and I were speaking last week, and she said, I just used to write all my memories. She said, now I'm sequencing everything out. And she said, I understand me better. And I like me better now. And it was because, before when she was just writing a memory, it would just be, oh, here's what happened in the moment. When you sequence things out, especially when you're creating a core of meaning, something that's going to be really powerful for your readers, then all of a sudden when you go to sequence it out, you realize, I made that decision because of these three things that happened before. He said this, I reacted this way, I decided this one thing about myself, and then I went out into the world and did this thing. And all of a sudden you have compassion and love and joy. You understand yourself better. But also for the reader, you can create something really life-changing and powerful. So I've written a lot of extreme stories, but what's wonderful about extreme stories is that no matter the hell and high water that anyone else has been through, they can see themselves into some of the struggle and then also see themselves into the rise out of the struggle, into something deeper and more meaningful for mankind, because we're all messy. And so, Cause, you're asking, how can we take this messy life of ours and put it into a format that's really going to give meaning? The first thing to do is to put your own chronology down so that you remember exactly where you were in time and space. And what it does for you is it creates order in your left brain. And then you can make sure that you add in those juicy stories. So I did have a publisher, or excuse me, a literary agent. He was the president and founder of the agency, but he said, Bridget, how do you tell your writers that every detail of life that they think is important, every event in life that they think is important, is not really important for the reader? And I said, well, I don't tell them that. What I do is first I have them write a draft for themselves. So you write a draft for yourself because, number one, you see yourself, you understand you better, and you like yourself more. But also, you heal. You get to heal from the things that have happened to you and maybe even lousy choices you made, which every human on the planet does. And you see yourself for who you are and also the gifts and blessings of that. Then you're going to take that material and you're going to turn around and you're going to write to an avatar. One person. We want to sell to everybody, right? But if you write to one person, you can write on this level of intimacy that actually helps you to tell a story. You're not worried about Aunt Jane's voice, or she's not going to like that, or my boss is going to think worse of me, or, he and she and she. Instead, you write that one person that will benefit greatest from this book. And then you go, I had 5 stories that apply to this one thread that I want to bring in here, but there's 3 of them that are really most important. The other 2, I can just, give an instance of, but in my show me story that I'm going to add juice and flair and dialogue and make sure my characters are well-rounded and they know what I'm feeling inside, as well as the dialogue that I'm giving with the other people, those juicy turning points are the ones that are most important for you to share. So people understand you, your inner motivations, how it is that you have come to live the life you have, and the inherent lessons that have come from those. That is juicy, powerful storytelling.
But the ego gets in the way of those juicy stories sometimes. So logically, we're building this chronological timeline.
Mm-hmm.
We're putting these different pieces together. We start to come up with these juicy stories, and it feels real good, but then the ego gets in the way, the saboteur gets in the way that says, come on, who are you to write a book? No one's going to ever read this.
Mm-hmm.
We overcome that, because we're getting some comments here, and several people have said they've started writing several books, and well, they're still in the process of writing several books, and they just don't feel like anybody would actually read it. But again, once you understand who that avatar is, at least you're writing it to one person. But how do you overcome that inner voice as a writer?
Okay, so Kaz, I love how you said, that inner saboteur that says, you can't write to save your life. You can't spell to save your life. Who do you think you are to share this story? And no one is going to read it. And what I will share with you is that people will read it, especially the realness and the rawness, especially if you decide that you're not going to preach, but you're going to share how you learned life lessons, the biggest obstacles you've ever overcome and how you overcame them. When you allow yourself not to just, oh, life was really sweet and wonderful, and all of a sudden, bing, unicorns and rainbows, and I had this wonderful, rise where I pulled up my sword and shield and I was the victor of the day. Yeah, it doesn't fly. People want to know that you've had rises and falls, and that's where your ego gets in the way. So what I want to share with you is that, number one, it happens to every single writer. I don't care who you talk to, unless, they have a psychological problem, which, sometimes we run into. Most people struggle with that. How do I write something meaningful, and will anybody ever want to read it? Number two is to recognize that this effort of writing is in itself incredibly healing for you. And also it will open doors that I can tell you I have rarely seen in other circumstances. It's like you tell people you're writing a book, suddenly they want to know more about it. They want to ask you to come and speak. They want you to, come and teach and do these things. It opens amazing doors, even in the writing of it. But still your ego mind will say, it's that protection. So I will say this, it takes great grit, determination, and courage to come out with your story, especially if it's not the most comfortable story, especially if you're being raw and human, especially if you're going to share with us that which makes you special, that which makes you tick, that which you are here to do. Mark Twain said the two greatest days of your life are the day you were born and the day you discover why. I find that authors, when they dare to go back into their timelines, figure this out, have something to share, they dare to see why they're here. The Japanese call this your ikigai. It is your reason for breathing. It is that measure of creation that I was talking about before. We all have a reason for being here, and you discover it the more you write your story. Then there is the getting to share it. And some of you have said, oh, I have multiple books in the works, but nothing finished. So I have this little note over here on my desk, and it says, one book completed is better than 11 started. So I'll give you that same intimation. Right now I'm in the middle of 3 books, and I will not ever do that again. 2 at a time is okay for me, but I have noticed, pick the project you are most passionate about. Give that one 75% to 80% of your attention, if not 100%. Get that puppy done. And I will also tell you this, a lot of times people are like, well, I've got this series of books that I want to write, either fiction or nonfiction, and I'm going to save the best for last. What I want to share with you is give us your best first, because number one, none of us know how long we have on the planet. Here we were just talking about the immaculately wonderful Eddie Van Halen, and I bet he did not think he would be passing at this time. And I bet, gosh, I'm getting emotional. There's a lot of stories that were unsung inside of him. And we never want to do that. So focus on your legacy, on your best stories first. Because here's the cool thing. Suddenly, more stories come, more lessons come, more content comes, more beauty comes, more friendships come, more adventure. It's been said, like, either write something worth reading or live something worth writing. I believe in doing both. And so, writing has opened worlds to me that I never realized I could do before. I've ridden elephants in India searching for Bengal tigers. I've shared the stage with women from 250 different countries. There's just amazing people like Cause that I've had the opportunity, honor to meet and to get to know and to be inspired by. So don't let your fear dictate who you are or what your destiny is, because you deserve so much more. Let your story instead open the doors that are waiting for you, open the invitations from people who will want to break bread with you, spend time with you, travel the world with you, experience love with you. It's an extraordinary thing. And obviously I'm very passionate about it. Cause is like, yeah, he hasn't flipped back on here yet again.
I'm right here. I mean, you are in such flow. And the one thing I absolutely love about you is your heart and your passion and your compassion for what you're doing. It is so contagious. Let's talk for a minute about writing for those people that a couple of people have said, I didn't get good grades in high school. I'm not particularly a great writer. I mean, I hear that a lot too, and I know you do. So if you don't believe you're a great writer right now, you were going to make the shift, right? We're not going to listen to that saboteur because you are a great writer.
Oh,
you're an author just waiting to be published.
Mm-hmm.
But is it really a habit, or how do we get in that flow more often so that the book can come through us? Because I believe it doesn't necessarily come to us, but that divinity, that inspiration comes through us onto the page or into the monitor.
Yeah, I find that quite often. So I want to address two things. You have people who said, well, I'm not that great of a writer, or I don't have a strong education. I want to share with you that I have read some extraordinary stories by folks with an 8th grade education or less. Content is king, and you're the only one that can provide the content. Like, what you have to offer, you yourself, the person that you are, is absolutely amazing, and no one else has it. No one sees through your eyes, hears through these ears, feels with your heart, understands things the way that you do. Even if people come from similar circumstances and have similar experiences, you're going to have completely different books because of how all of those life experiences have shaped you. And you can always, 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 always hire an editor. It's not that expensive. I encourage even the best writers to hire editors. I have an amazing editor, Hannah. And the reason is because even the best writers deserve that attention to detail. And also because sometimes we just don't see what we don't see. Writers get scotoma, and we are putting things down on the page, and our brain sees what's supposed to be there, but not always what's there. So don't worry so much about the editing. You can get help with that. Worry about telling your very best story. So that's the bigger thing. And then in the second thing is, this act of writing, this habit of writing. Some people, they feel like they have to sit down at the same time every day, have a ritual. I know that really helps your brain. Like I love to, have water with lemon at my desk. I like to sometimes light a candle if there's a really important chapter that I'm writing. But I sit down and my body says, "Oh, she's ready to write," and then those brain synapses kick in, and I don't spend a lot of time in front of a blank page, which is wonderful. When and if you ever do, give yourself creative writing exercises to do just for 2 or 3 minutes. Set a timer. There's tons of tips online. I know we do a couple of challenges a year in the summer and the winter that are free, and you get a writing tip into your inbox every single day. It's really fun. But it's one of those things where you begin to train your brain to sit down into the act of writing. One of my friends who's an author, he says, the best writers carry 2 books with them wherever they go. One is the book that they're reading, and the other one is the book that they're writing.
Wow.
So always carry a journal with you, or be able to record on your phone, to be able to record your thoughts as they come, because sometimes they come in the craziest places. I have one of my dear friends who's an author, and he has one of those waterproof pads inside of his shower, because the very best ideas come in the shower. So just for you, like, take a look at, where could you spend more time? Where could you perhaps, instead of sacrificing, Netflix, you actually make sacred this ability for you to write, to share your story, to gift someone else an opportunity to learn from you and what you have divined. And, it's really interesting that Claus said that sometimes we think it comes from us, but oftentimes it comes through us. And I have, fortunately been a sacred vessel of that from time to time, as often as I can, because it just is this a beautiful experience to know that, Mother Teresa said, "I am the pen in the hand of a God who is writing a love letter to the world." And when I heard that, I was like, that's me, not Mother Teresa, but the pen in the hand of a God who's writing a love letter to the world. And so those of you who feel duly inspired, like, trust that. And for those of you who are not sure if you're inspired, you can begin the process of listening to the muse inside of you, around you, being a vessel for that. Oftentimes it's just, hey, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to see what words come out of me. My daughter is a better writer than I am. And when I listen to some of her writing, it just moves my soul. She's one of those who the words move through her. And what I will say is, when you direct your story to your avatar, when you have the power and the clear intention to serve someone, is when a lot of that power will come to you. I've had miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle come into the lives of myself and the subjects I've been writing to, when we knew clearly who was going to benefit best from this book. So we wrote to one person, and thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people benefited from the story because of that act of service from the heart, from love. It's more power than most people give credit for.
One of the things that I thought was just an absolutely beautiful experience that we shared when we were up at Bear Lake a couple of weekends ago were just all the different exercises. Because in my mind, I don't know what I expected, but I just believed, we'd be sitting there writing all day and having different exercises. But I love how you created experiences so that you could see the value of those stories and the ability to really put color around the story. So let me use one thing as an example, and then you go a little bit deeper into why you did it and why it's so powerful. I remember the first night, we closed our eyes. We were actually blindfolded, and then we were handed different objects. And without saying what we thought it was, we described those objects together. And then we tasted a couple of different things, right? And we had to You had to have faith, they put out your hand and you're going to eat something. And we put it in our mouth. And then we had to, without saying what it was, describe what it was. Talk through the power of those types of experiences as you relate them to what you had in your chronology, so that your stories come to life, that there are five senses that don't do it just one dimensionally, but really help the reader live the story and feel all five senses. I just think that's so powerful for aspiring writers here.
Well, thank you, Kaz. And I'm glad that you remember those things so powerfully. That's why we designed them that way on purpose. If you go into a college classroom and you're taking a course, you only get so much out of it. That's why I love my live events. But here's the thing is that some of the most powerful writing is what I was talking about earlier, is show me story. Don't just tell me. If you tell me something, then I have to make up my mind whether I believe it's true or not. But if you show me, if you immerse me in the details of it, and I call it like filling up the bathtub and bringing the reader in with you. So the reader knows just the exact temperature of the water and can hear the suds sloshing over the sides. And, each of those five senses becomes this immersive experience. And you're not going to put each of the five senses in one paragraph. It would be overwhelm. But what it is you're going to give a very human way of interacting with your reader, because they can't see or hear or taste or touch or smell anything until you put it on the page. And so the very act of what you have lived through, what you have created in your mind, all these stories that make up who you are, when you give the reader that insight of, what was it like to be in that argument and to be told these things, and what happened inside of your body, and when your feet went numb, and the time that you were kissed for the first time, and how your lips got all tingly and you had chills running down your arms, and, things that you didn't know what to do with in your body, right? That all of these pieces that make us so innately human. So those are called experiential exercises, and it's a type of learning where you awaken skills, particularly communication and writing skills that you might not have ever even knew that you had, but then you're able to create greater communication for the entire rest of your life when it comes to writing, speaking, connecting with other people. It's really powerful experiences. So I love that. And part of the naming things or describing things without the names, sometimes we get really stuck in that left brain, analytical, linear, etc. And we even forget, the plethora of colors that there are, the plethora of scents that there are, the sensations, the feelings, the emotions, the evocations that you can give to your reader, and make the experiences of like reading your book just so lovely that they'll never forget it. That's what we want, is a book that's so intense, so wonderfully paced, so enrapturing that they learn from you as if they are you. I remember my father telling me when I was young, never to judge another person if I hadn't walked 3 miles in their shoes. And he was told that by a Native American, and it really made him think. And I realized as I was growing up that through the power of story, we actually can take each other through these things. And I had a wonderful friend. He's a friend now, but we had met him at Sundance, and he had been at Standing Rock. He was one of the Native tribe members that came to protect the water, that came to protect the sacred land. And no matter what your political affiliations are, for him, it meant something for his children and his grandchildren, for the people of their tribe. And he worked with the youth of their tribe up in Washington, Oregon area. And he said, when I came to this retreat, and he kind of, had his arms folded like this, he's like, I was thinking I was going to be surrounded by rich white women and men who would never understand where I came from, would never understand how I was told and taught never to cry. How my stories were taken from me as a child. I was not allowed to speak in my language, not allowed to tell our stories, that we had to become assimilated into the culture. But as you are each sharing your stories, I realize how powerful stories are. And I'm going to go back home and I'm going to be sharing stories of our people, our tribe, our culture, our heritage, our nation, and listening to other people's stories, because now I know you and I love you and I feel you. And then instead of crying, he began to sing to us. It was one of the most exquisite experiences of my life. But it, like, my books have opened people's perspectives. Your writing can open people's perspectives. This act of storytelling, the act of sharing your very soul with other individuals, can change their lives for the better. And so just please don't discount the power of your story to change the world. Don't discount the passion and the reason behind all of the things that have happened to you and all of the choices you have made and where it has brought you to now, because those are the exact things that will help your readers to understand you and inherently learn from you experientially when you put it on the page, like Cause is learning to do. Awesome.
Yes, the power of story. And what a great gift to give to the world. Again, we're focused on that avatar because we don't want to be everything to everybody or we're going to be nothing to nobody. So we focus on that avatar. But those who will read your story will be blessed. So let your light shine. Don't hide your story. Absolutely. So once we've written our story, I think it was you who said this, and if I am misquoting you, correct me, but I think you said, other than the scriptures, everything can be edited, right?
Sure, that came right out of my mouth.
I heard that recently. I thought, well, other than the scriptures, everything can be edited. I think it was Gaina Lynn recently, a guest I had. She said that. That's right. So get it out there. Just put it out there, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be edited. Gaina Lynn, if you're watching, I do remember now you said that in writing your books. Everything other than scriptures can be edited. So get a good editor, get a good proofreader. But what's the next step then? Because back in the good old days, there were 5 or 6 major publishing houses. That's completely changed, especially when we went to digital presses, on-demand printing, self-publishing. Years ago, it was just vanity press. Now it's more mainstream. Talk a little bit about, actually, now we've got the manuscript. How do we actually get it published? So that's the difference between a writer and an author, is an author gets published, and you watching today will be a published author, not just a writer. So now you can say you're an author.
Exactly.
How do we get published?
How do you get published? So you've got your manuscript done, and I suggest that you have an editor at this stage. You know, you've written at least a few drafts. So that first draft for you, second draft for your avatar, then you've gone back and you've rewritten, you've got some feedback, and then you've had an editor take a look at it, because that will be an exquisite product from which you can now do amazing things with. And you have a couple of choices. So you can go the indie track, or you can go the traditional publishing track. So the indie track, or self-publishing, has grown exponentially, as Kaz was saying, you know, digital, print on demand. There's so many wonderful ways of doing this. It used to be a time when it was vanity press, and that meant that you couldn't get your book published by a traditional publisher. So it was kind of looked down upon for quite some time. But all of the coaches and speakers and influencers who are like, I'm not going to wait for this, and I have a message to tell, and I got a program to share, and I've got an audience of, you know, 5,000 or 300 in the room. And so they were the ones that absolutely changed this industry. So in 24 hours, you can have an ebook online with your own ISBN and be able to do great things with it. Within a few days, you can have books in your hot little hand up on Amazon for people to be able to purchase. So it's very sexy for a lot of people to say, I'm done with this. I want to make sure that it gets out into the world right away. And so that is possible. And the one thing that I will suggest is that you absolutely compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, because there are so many self-publishers now, and they offer different things. So some will help you launch, some will help you become a bestseller. Some will only print the book and get it to you in your hands or out to your readers. So be sure to check all the services that are available and then purchase what you want. Traditional publishing is still here, and it still has tremendous force and energy in the literary world, and also libraries, universities, and so many places throughout the world, so much influence. And there still are the largest, think Simon and Schuster and Hachette, and these big names that are still looking for extraordinary stories. So these are especially helpful if you're a movie star, a rock star, a president, but also if you have a big reveal story, or you have proven yourself to be an extraordinary author with something very, very important to say. And then there are the other large publishers and medium-sized publishers and even small publishers. So if you're a first-time author, some of these small publishers are wonderful because they're more apt to take a chance on you. So you get your publication ready, and then you're going to do what we call is writing a book proposal, which is essentially the business plan for your book. And this business plan says who you are, what the book is all about, what makes it so great, how it's different from other things that are out there on the market, but that there is a market for your book. And then how are you going to launch it? How are you going to be visible so that readers can find you and that you can sell books? Because traditional publishers, they are looking for that sure thing. And I just want you to be aware of that. Like, they want to know you have a platform. They want to know that you have a way to market yourself. They want to know that you're very, very, very visible. So even for fiction authors, because there used to be a time that the nonfiction had to be quite visible, but the fiction could kind of swirl around and maybe have a mysterious presence. Not anymore. If you're going to be any kind of author or influencer, you have to be willing to be visible, and writing your story will help you to get there. So business plan for your book, and see who's going to take a chance on you. If you're in the medium to larger publishers, you will have to engage the services of an agent who is like a real estate agent, but the property is this beautiful manuscript that you have, and their job is to find the very best deal for you, just like a real estate agent is. And they're going to find the best buyer with the best terms, and they go to bat for you, which is wonderful. The smaller size, all the way down to the tiny publishers, you are the one who represents you. So just make sure you look carefully at your contracts, that you're being a smart business person. We all get excited when someone says, "Yeah, I want to see your book. I want to publish your book." And just make sure that you're, treating yourself with respect, and that you carefully read through the contract. And then if it's good contract, if it's good business, then do it. Celebrate it. It's a wonderful thing. So an investment here, an investment of time here, but they're both well worth it. One important thing, Kaz, as you know, to mention on traditional publishing is that you will not be published in 24 hours. You will not be published in 2 weeks. They're working on catalogs. So, they're working on catalogs like, several months to a year from now. And the largest publishers are working a year and about a quarter in advance. And so just be aware that those are the constraints that you have. If you're an author and a speaker and you got a program coming out, you're definitely going to want to self-publish, because it'll be in your hands, in your customers' hands right away.
And you have some news.
Yes, I do.
That we can share today. I know it was kind of hush hush a few weeks ago, but I saw an official declaration, an email that made this public. So share your news and the good news about what you can do to help people get self-published.
Oh, thank you, Kaz. I haven't been advertising much, just because when I teach people, I want them to be able to make the choice. Is traditional best for me, or is self-publishing best for me? And I always want them to know and be prepared for both sides of the business. However, I was finding that a lot of self-publishers were charging a lot of money, and that not all of them knew how to play the visibility game and to be able to ensure national and international best-selling status. Well, I was doing a lot of interviewing, talking to a lot of people, comparing some things because I wanted the very best for my clients that come through my programs. You know, when someone pours their heart and soul out into a book and gets that vulnerable to be, you know, showing themselves out on paper like that, I struggled to send them to the wolves from there, you know, which sometimes can happen. So I was looking for these great reputable people and developed a team. So I now have a team, and we have a new imprint called Inspired Legacy Publishing. And it is for those inspiring stories, those that are changing the world, high quality, well written stories, and doesn't, you know, cost an arm and a leg in your firstborn in order to publish. And we also have guaranteed national and international best-selling programs. So, you know, to be able to write your book in a legacy sort of way, you know, so much better than that expensive business card. And then to be able to publish something you can really be proud of, and then to launch it in a magnificent way. We're just like, wow, we got the whole package now for those who want to go in that direction, and just feels so good. Thank you, Kaz.
That is so wonderful. I'm just so excited for you. And I know it's like having another grandchild or another child or something as your business continues to grow and develop and evolve and truly become a full service shop.
Thank you.
I just want you to know, and there's just been a ton of comments today, just how much love and passion you have for what you do, that it just shines through. And that is such a blessing to be a part of that. And so I encourage all of our viewers and listeners that are thinking about putting together a book and then really taking the big step of creating that legacy work, that legacy book, so that you can let your light shine to the whole world. Bridget's the one. And what a great place to get started. And she's just a wonderful resource to help point you in the right direction. And you've got a special offer for our viewers today. Tell us more about what's coming up in November. Tell us a little bit more about the experience and what the offer is today.
Okay. Well, Kaz, as you know, one of my favorite things to do is to get a small group of authors together to build confidence, create these writing skills, really move forward on a book. And I have the desire to cut a learning curve. So I created a retreat that really helps people to understand more about their story. How are they going to start it? What are they going to do with a mess in the middle? And how are they going to end it to be as powerful as it deserves? So we get together in a small cabin up near Park City in a place called Heber. We're out in the foothills. And it's this gorgeous cabin. We've got aspen trees and other things all around us, lots of deer and different things. And we have delicious food, as you know, these wonderful chefs that have love-infused healthy food for us and a few little comfort items as well. So we can focus and concentrate on our books. And it includes one-on-one time with me, a full color manual, these experiential exercises, and all this wonderful time with many other wonderful writers on the planet. It's awesome. So not too many. We're keeping it small because of COVID. And so big, beautiful cabin though, and we'll be able to spread out. And I do have to tell you, we've got, for Causes viewers, $500 off this retreat. And so if you go to yourinspiredstory.com, you're going to notice the retreats that we offer, and you can go to that and qualify for that $500 off. And if you let us know that Cause sent you, then we'll be sure to include that, incorporate that.
If I were you, I would charge them more. if they're associated with me at all, I'd charge them more. Don't hold that against them.
I know better, Cause. I know better. I have met some of your extraordinary associates and friends. It's really,
it's a small world. I showed up at that retreat and realized that how small the world is. And yeah, there were some friends there and people I've worked with, but made a lot of new friends too. And that's what I really loved about the retreat and the virtual program we did during the weekend, but particularly the retreat was I left with 15 new friends. Yeah. And I mean that sincerely. And you subscribe to what I subscribe to, and that is experiential learning. When I worked at NBC Universal, a lot of times senior executives would sit through my training at first and go, where are we going with all this? Why are we playing games? And why are we doing things with food? And why are we doing things with, little costumes or something? But by the end, if they had an experience, it was always memorable. And that's what I love about Bridget's experiences, is you're not just going to learn how to write and tap into that special thing that you need to share with the world, but you're going to have experiences that will just really help magnify who you are, what your story is, and how it's going to be so powerful to the world. So Bridget, I just want to just say I love you. I'm just so grateful for you, and thank you for just shining your light brightly too in all that you do.
I love you too. This has been such an honor, and thank you for who you are and what you're all about. It's truly tremendous just to even know you. Thank you.
Well, I have great coaches and mentors, and I put you right there at the top of the list. So take advantage of that special for the retreat coming up in November in Heber City. It's, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's like 3.5 days. Well worth it. And it is an experience. And this is not overselling this. This is coming from me, not Gary Lee Price, because if it was Gary Lee Price, he would it'd be like a free trip to Mars or something. He's so out there. He's left all kinds of comments today. So if he was telling you all about it, it would be just so unbelievable. But it is an amazing experience that will change your life. So reach out to yourinspiredstory.com. Bridget Cook-Burch, thank you so much for sharing time with us today and all the valuable information that you've shared with us to get started on this path, on this journey.
Well, awesome. You're a fantastic host. One of the best I've ever had. You have a beautiful day, Cos. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
Subscribe to Cos TV and listen to the Cos Green audio experience on iTunes and Spotify.